Hey, there you are. Welcome to another episode of Unbreakable Success. Really grateful to bring you today's guest, Myke Macapinlac from socialconfidencemastery.com. Myke is a social confidence expert. It's what he does. It's his area of expertise. And the reason I'm excited to have him here today for us on the show is this. As we continue to grow as entrepreneurs and in our personal lives, we're going to need to bring people into our network that we A, either have never met before, or B, sometimes we need to reach out to people that we feel like, quite frankly, we feel like they're out of our league sometimes. And for us to be successful at that, we have to develop a certain amount of social competency. We have to have some competency in the way that we can confidently approach new people and generate these relationships that are mutually beneficial to grow our impact, our income, and really complete the missions that we have in our own entrepreneurial journeys. Myke is here to give us some great skills and great tips that we can develop to help us along the way. So I'm really grateful to bring him to you. You're going to love this interview, and I'm grateful to make sure you check out Myke at socialconfidencemastery.com. Here's Myke Macapinlac. All right, Myke, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on Unbreakable Success. How you making out today? How are things?
Hey man, I'm really, really excited to be on your show. I know not that long ago you were on my show too, so yeah. I'm happy to return the favor.
Had a great time. Glad to be able to flip the lens around and put you on the spot. And I know you got all kind of stuff. I know you got some great stuff to share with everybody today. It's funny. I'm realizing I'm almost at 30 episodes now, and we haven't really hit the topic of confidence. And you're the social confidence guy. That's your expertise. That's what you do in your coaching practice and your business. So I was pretty stoked when you and I hooked up. We were in the same circle with Amy Porterfield on her mastermind. And shout out to Amy for it's great to be in these little worlds where you connect. So I'm glad we're here now and get to share some of what you got. But before we jump into your expertise, none of us started as experts in anything. So can you share with everybody a little bit about your backstory? How were you led up to your Reader's Digest version of how you wound up here today?
Yeah, sure. So my story started back in 2002, like 16 years ago, I believe, when my family and I immigrated from the Philippines to Canada. And the first few years being in a brand new country was a huge struggle for me due to a number of things. So the first one, back then I used to be massively overweight. I weighed 200 pounds. I had a 36-inch waist, and I'm only 5'5", right? So that, I had a really poor self-image back then. Number two, I actually didn't speak English. I knew how to read. I knew how to write. I knew if I watch TV or something or a movie, I can understand it. I just never had the opportunity to speak it. So that was a huge hurdle for me to communicate myself. And number three, I suffered from really bad social anxiety. So I remember back in high school, I would actually eat my lunch in a bathroom stall because I was too terrified to mingle with the other kids, right? So needless to say, I found it really hard to make friends, let alone get dates. And my career choice afterwards didn't really help my case. I went to school for engineering and I graduated, got a good job right after school. And I spent my days looking at graphs and blueprints and, talking. It's not the most social job ever, right? Yeah. So, I mean, like, it's funny because I went through life really early on doing a lot of the things that I'm supposed to, went to school, got the good grades, got the good job, bought a house really earlier on, bought a lot of nice things. But then something in me it felt empty. I felt really unhappy, even though I've done a lot of the things that I'm supposed to. And that's kind of what sparked this journey. And I remember going through the recession back in 2008. I got laid off from my engineering job. And it was a bittersweet experience, right? Someone kind of, I wanted to quit, but they were paying me too much to quit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we've all been been sucked into the routine, and it's painful to be there, but it seems like it'd be more painful to leave, right?
Yeah. So the fact that someone kind of just handed me the pink slip and did me a favor actually by letting me go, that kind of sparked the entrepreneurial journey. So. Nice. I read the 4-Hour Workweek very early on. I feel I've always had this desire to kind of do my own thing, like live my life on my own terms. But then I didn't really know that it was possible until I read the 4-Hour Workweek, and that's kind of what sparked my journey, right? And then I feel like I'm a very spiritual person, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like if you put out a specific vibration to the universe, it gives it
Yeah.
back to you. So one day I was sitting at a coffee shop and reading another entrepreneurial book, The $100 Startup by Chris Gullibo.
Yep.
This guy sat in front of me and he asked me if I was trying to start a business, and I said like actually yeah, but I couldn't figure it out, right? So he recommended a podcast, which was a pivotal point for me in my life. It's Smart Passive Income by Pat
Yeah.
Flynn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I tried starting some businesses back in the day, and I just couldn't make it work. And from my perspective, the worst part of this journey was, me having to give up on my dreams, right? Because I couldn't make it work on my own. And there was one point in my journey where I said, I can't make it work. I have to go back to my engineering job, which I did, right? And I felt so defeated, and
Wow.
that's when I met this guy who gave me this podcast. And now going to work had a new meaning, right? Now I'm using my work time, my driving time to work, driving time from work to home, to listen to this podcast and consume everything I could learn about starting an online business. So later on, I didn't have a lot of money back then, but I invested I remember this, Aaron, my last $500 buying this course called from Internet Business Mastery called the Academy, because that's where Pat Flynn got started.
Yep.
To me, that's what kind of sparked this whole thing. Like I started learning the basics and fundamentals of proper online marketing. Having a brand, understanding your avatar, writing emails, writing sales copy, creating products,
Yep.
driving traffic to your website. And I made my first dollar online in 2013.
Nice.
And since then, I never looked back. And yeah, a few years later, here I am
That's
running the
amazing.
show full time.
That's amazing, man. How old were you when you came over from the Philippines?
I was 16. I'm 32 now. So
Cool.
yeah, I've been in Canada half my life.
Nice. All right. That's amazing. It's really I love what you said. A lot of what you said. But specifically, I think what a lot of people can hit home for a lot of people, and is a great lesson for a lot of people, is how you leveraged the time you had, even though you went back to work, and I'm sure you didn't want to at the time, but it's what had to be done. It's where you were. That was the moment for you. You knew your plan wasn't to stay there, but to hear that you leveraged, you were happy about the fact that you had that drive time to and from work to leverage your learning and keep building what you're building. I think it's huge, and because I know one of the biggest things for a lot of people is we hear it all the time. Don't have enough time to do that. I'd love to have my own business, but there's just no time. But the same people are driving a half hour to work, or 45 minutes to work, or watching a couple hours of TV a night, and while I get that we all still have to live, if you really want to change your life, we really have to learn to leverage our time. I think it's really cool that you put the time in to do that, and it definitely obviously paid off for you. So hats off for having that lesson for everybody to hear. So what was your moment? Because I know that's where I get where you started and how you fast forwarded to here. At what point did you realize that this social confidence was going to be your thing? I mean, obviously it's what you struggled with, and I love those stories where people have these backstories of their pain, one of their biggest pain points, and they turn it to their expertise. That baffles me all the time. I love hearing it, because it just speaks to the human spirit, so to speak, of what we're capable of. So when did you realize that was going to be it for you?
You know what, Aaron? So again, my first few years being in a brand new country from Asia was tough, right? And I was working these low level jobs. I worked at Subway, I worked at McDonald's,
Yeah.
and I knew that if I didn't do anything about my situation, I didn't know what it was back then. I just knew something had to be different. And I think at a young age, I've always been pretty observant and perceptive. Even though I didn't like I didn't like my engineering job, I was really good at it, because I'm really good at seeing patterns. So to me, I started looking around and I started seeing the people that had the lifestyle that I wanted, specifically immigrants who had the lifestyle that I wanted. I started paying attention to their mindset, how they were dressed, the types of job they had, the types of social circle they were around. And I'm like, okay, clearly, this guy, he came from a different country. And he's made a name for himself. He's doing something that I also want to do. So now I'm like, so instead of being intimidated. I was inspired. I'm just like, what is it about this person that made him so attractive, right? And to me, I started noticing that, oh, he's charismatic. Oh, he's well spoken. He's well dressed. He communicates well, and he's well networked. So ever since then, I'm like, okay, well, clearly there's a certain skill set here that I needed to learn. That's kind of what started my journey. So I read everything and anything I could about social dynamics, every book on charisma.
Nice.
Earlier on in my career, I did kind of get into the whole like pickup artist scene, but not too long because it felt very off and inauthentic.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started exploring, like real personal development, right? Like how to influence people, Tony Robbins, all those guys.
Yep.
And kind of backtracking to what I said before, like when you start an online business, you have to pick a niche, right?
Yeah.
And to me, I was so passionate and interested in this topic that I decided to dedicate my business into social confidence because of what it's done for me, right? Like I've been able to, like travel all over the world, attend these conferences, have a lot of amazing mentors and friends and experiences. I've dated some pretty amazing women in my life, and every time I go to a new city, I've got this blueprint and formula to start a brand new network from scratch. And I've done this over and over again. And really, a lot of the guys who come to me, they're good people, right? They're eligible bachelors. They could be like amazing best friends, amazing partners, except they can't communicate themselves. Yeah. And they're under this mindset that, if I go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and make lots of money, then life kind of takes care of itself. Well, maybe in the industrial age, right, back then. But we live in the information age where none of those things are as important compared to before. Like it's all about who you know. It's not just what you know. And nowadays it's about building social capital. Yeah. So to me, like I mean, I don't call myself an expert. I call myself a student teacher because I learn. I'm a student first, and then I teach people later on, right? I still learn from people. I still do a lot of reading. I still go to a lot of conferences because I'm always curious. I want to stay sharp. Yeah. Therefore, I can kind of stay ahead of my students, so to speak.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, and I totally agree with you on the expert thing. Because to me, by definition, the expert is the one that is demands that they learn more than anyone else because that gives you the ability to be able to share that information. So that's really nice. So what was your square one as far as parlaying this into an actual business model for you? Like, I get where you realized this was going to be your thing and you were going to help people evolve their own social confidence. What was square one for you to say, okay, this is going to be my first step? I mean, aside from the tech stuff and websites and all that stuff, what was the first step of, okay, here's where I'm going to start with my first client? How'd that look for you?
So I didn't mention this earlier, but I actually hustled for an internship with a local dating company back in the day, right? So when I got laid off from my engineering job, I worked at different restaurants. I was a bartender. I was a server. And one of the nightclubs that I worked at, I kept seeing these two guys, right? These two guys, they always had different guys around them. And again, I'm pretty perceptive, and I'm like, oh, I think like they're coaching this guy to like talk to women. So I got really intrigued by what they were doing. So I came up to one of the guys there, introduced myself. And so they were running these dating boot camps, right? And I'm like, wow. Yeah, how can I get involved in what you guys are doing? This is so cool. This is so fascinating. And this is like a few years in of me studying this material. So long story short, they ended up taking me on as an intern, and they trained me to become one of their coaches. And at a young age, in my early 20s, they taught me how to sell high-ticket programs. Yeah, right. They taught me how to prospect, how to sit people down, communicate the value, and later on, like fearlessly ask for the money. Yeah. So, but again, that wasn't the model that I wanted to have for myself when I got into business. Although, like when I did start my company, I was doing a lot of in-person stuff because I didn't have, the money or the experience to launch these massive campaigns and build a fancy website. I actually didn't have an email list for the first 2 years. What I had though was a meetup group. So I understood the premise of online marketing, right? Traffic conversion sales. So for me, I'm just like, okay, how do I translate this with the resource that I currently have? So I didn't know how to build websites back then. So I signed up for Meetup. I started hosting my Meetup groups, and I started teaching workshops. Kind of like in-person webinars, right?
Yeah.
So that's how, again, Meetup promoted the group. I got people in the door. I started hosting these different, 4-part workshops, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like a 4-part video series. And I just repeated the whole thing for 2 years. And that's how I built a sustainable business. It allowed me to not just cover my expenses, but just buy me time, to go to all these different conferences. It bought me time to, buy the courses, learn the skills and all these things. So yeah, a lot of the work that I was doing before I moved everything online was in person. Wow. So to answer your question, I picked, when I started my business, I was a dating coach, but then when I hit my 30s, I started to realize that a lot of the guys who are coming to me, they're coming to me with the same problem, right? They're coming to me, they want the girlfriend, they want to have more women in their lives. But the thing is, their issues are all the same. It's foundational. Yeah. The mindset, the style, the body language, the storytelling. They don't have friends. And as you know, you're married now, right?
Yeah.
If you're coming in and you're going out there, you're doing the dog and pony show, trying to get the girl in bed, and if you don't have the lifestyle to back it up, right, she's gonna discover later on that the real you, and she's gonna reject you. And I've experienced that firsthand. So I decided to move away from dating and teach more of the foundational stuff, because I feel like that's the stuff that guys really need. Yeah. And I feel like from an opportunity perspective, it opens up more doors for me. I spoke in Vegas recently at a dating event, and now I'm speaking in November this year in my hometown at a networking event for project managers about the importance of networking. Right.
Beautiful. Nice, man. That's really good stuff. That's all. I love that story, and I love it's really awesome listening to you, because you can hear. I'm sure everybody, you as you're listening out there, you can pick up on the progression of how this worked. And man, I know I love hearing that for me, because as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you probably felt the same thing, sometimes it can feel like you're always in the same place, even though you're working and you're making this progress. So it's really cool to hear how little by little you were progressing from one thing to the next, from the getting your start and getting your feet wet and actually learning some usable skills, even though it was in that dating scene at the time. But it was something that kind of it gave you a baseline of skill that you were totally able to parlay into what you ultimately wound up being your thing. So that's really good to hear. So on the topic of social confidence, how do you see that in the context? Because most of our people, as they're listening now, they're entrepreneurs. A lot of them still have their 9-to-5 and are working on building their businesses. But how do you see social confidence as relevant to entrepreneurship? Like, how does that look for you? Because you have both things going on, right? As you progress through your career, you've built this skill of social confidence and teaching it to others, and you also built your own business. So how does that play out for you? And how would you, over a pint, explain to somebody why they really need to understand the logistics of confidence when it comes to helping them be able to grow an authentic business?
Yeah. So, people, when I got started into this, people would create these segments, right? Like, oh, I'm either like B2B or B2C. So like, business to business, right, or business to consumers, right? But at the end of the day, it's P2P. It's people to people.
Yes.
Right? Like money. There's a book that I read not that long ago. It's called Build Your Money Muscles, and it's by Joanne Sotkins. And I thought this book was so brilliant, because she said that there's no such thing as money problems. There's only relationship problems, because money comes from people.
Brilliant.
So if you don't have money, if you don't have relationships, you don't have money, right? It's people who pull out their credit cards. Money doesn't grow on trees. So if you're not good at building relationships with people, no one's going to buy from you. Plain and simple, right? So in terms of social confidence, some tangible benefits. For me, Aaron, I've been mentored by a lot of people who charge like $1,000, $2,000 bucks an hour, right? They mentored me for free because we have a good relationship, right? So that's been like a tangible benefit. The second thing is because I'm able to portray myself as someone who is authoritative, I can communicate my ideas effectively. People have bought from me on stage. People have bought from me on webinars. People have bought from me from Skype, right? First time people hearing about me for the first time. For the first time we get on Skype. Next thing you know, we're exchanging value for money, kind of thing, right? So that's been a big help for me. And then the last thing is, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be a thought leader in this space, the relationship you have with yourself dictates the relationship you have with other people. So if you're socially confident, if you can manage outside relationships, that's a clear indication that you have a good relationship with who you are as a person, more than anything. So I feel like I've made my case.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, I know this is what you do. And I promise everybody before we finish the show, I'll definitely make sure you know how to get a hold of Myke and learn from him and learn more from his expertise. Can you give me some examples of how somebody was able to benefit and transition? What's one of your all-star stories that you have over the years that you can make it relevant for people so they can kind of wrap their brain around how this matters?
I've got a bunch, actually. So the first guy that I would mention, this first case study would be a guy who was referred to me by a former student, actually. He's in his 60s. And, I'll be completely transparent. When I first heard that a 60-year-old wanted to take my program, I was really intimidated because in my head, I was 30 when he applied. So he's like literally twice my age. Yeah. And at first, I was like, this guy's has twice the life experience. Yeah. He's more wise than who I am. Why would he ever sign up for my coaching, right? And then when we sat down for a meeting, the first thing that I asked him was, what do you want? And it actually took him 2 minutes to elaborate on what he wanted, right? Yeah. So to me, immediately I knew that I could help this guy, right? Most guys that I've worked with don't have an idea what they're looking for, right? So when this guy came to me, he's been divorced twice. He needed help for the third time because he wanted to do it right. So long story short, he went through the program, and I get an email 2 weeks after saying that he found his girlfriend. Nice. 2 weeks. 60 years old, right? Divorced twice. The other guy, I would say, this guy came, I met this guy through my meetup back in the day, right? He, came to my meetup, and then I discovered that he was actually autistic, right? Okay. Never had a girlfriend. He's been like friend zoned quite a bit. Didn't have a lot of friends. He took the program, and again, same thing. First month of coaching together, he got a girlfriend, right? Nice. The other guy that I would say would be I don't normally take on students. I work with a lot of professionals, but this was back then when I was interning for that dating company. This guy applied. He was a student, and I taught him that it's your ability to relate to other people that's gonna take you further in life than any degree you can take in school. Yeah. So he actually dropped out of school. Oh, I didn't tell him to do that. He actually dropped out of school. He used the rest of his student loans to travel all over the world, attend all these conferences and seminars, and now he's got this thriving Amazon business that makes him more than 10 G's a month. Wow. That's awesome. So let's think about this, right? You go in debt for 30K, right? You apply for many different jobs, for someone to tell you, oh, you're good enough for a $35,000 a year salary. Yeah. Or you invest in yourself, you invest in your social capital, you get mentorships from different people who have the skill sets that you want, right? Yeah. And you have this thriving business and you're totally in control of your life. Again, nothing against school. If you want to go to school, by all means, do what you want. But for people who want to take an alternative path, right? This is all I'm trying to say, right? Going to school, getting good grades, and getting a good job is one path. It's not the path, right? So for people who want to have an alternative path in their life, just so you know, it's people who are going to get you there, right? It's your ability to create relationships with people that's going to make you successful in life.
Brilliant. So true. And that's a lesson I keep learning literally week by week. It's the more and more people I meet, it's a lesson that keeps ringing true. and I know you know that from your experience as well, from your own podcast as well. Meeting people and getting new people on your shows is a pretty awesome thing.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to run down. I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
If you got somebody who's a dinner party question, like, Myke, I just, like you, I grew up, I've never felt confident my whole life, and before I finish the second half of this glass of wine, what do I really need to know? What's a really condensed version of what I really need to know about myself? Not that you're going to teach me right now, but what should I really understand about confidence and the way it works that can at least get me started and get me itching to make a phone call to you tomorrow so you can help me a little further?
For sure. Do you mind if I promote a checklist that kind of talks about this?
Absolutely. I hope you will, man. Let it out, because I know you got good stuff. As a matter of fact, I know the checklist you're talking about. I've seen it. So people, you need this. I'll give you the link when he's done.
Yeah, seriously, just go to my website, socialconfidencemastery.com.
Yep.
You'll see a cheat sheet that talks about the 5 things you need to do to be able to approach and talk to anybody.
Perfect.
So, but I'll run through it very quickly right now. But if you want the summary and the checklist, just go to my website. It should be there. You can download it for free. So socialconfidencemastery.com. So the first thing that I would say is, whatever you do, right? Whether you want to get a date, you want to build a business, you want to make new friends, right? The first thing you have to understand is the way you think, right? Because it all starts right here. So when I take on a guy, the first week of the coaching program is getting them into developing a habit of meditation, right? Because so many guys that I've worked with identify with their thoughts so much, like they become their thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, like you can think of 1,000 different things every single day, and if you're being pulled in so many different directions and you can't control the voice that's happening in your head, right? Then you're always, especially if you've got a negative filter, right?
Yep.
You're always going to be drawn into, like bad situations, right? No money, no friends, shitty job, bad relationships, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
So the first thing is you need to take control of your mindset, right? Start meditating. And then the second thing is, a lot of the guys that I've worked with, especially entrepreneurs, they're so hard on themselves, right? They beat themselves up like no one's business. So the second thing on that first segment of your mindset is to change the way you talk to yourself. Develop a better have self-compassion, improve the way you talk to yourself. And a tangible way to be able to do that is to talk to yourself as if you're talking to the 5-year-old version of who you are, right? Would you tell a 5-year-old kid you're not good enough? Would you tell a 5-year-old kid that, he can't make it or he can't succeed or that, he's a piece of garbage? Like, you wouldn't, right? You'd be loving and encouraging. So that's number one. The second thing to improve your social confidence is, let's be honest, Aaron, it's all about first impressions, right? From an entrepreneurial space,
True.
you go to someone's website and it looks like shit.
You're out, gone.
Right?
Yeah.
They're gone, right? It didn't matter if they had the best freaking content in the world. From a Google Analytics perspective, they're gonna have a very high bounce rate, and it's because people judge you based on your first impression. And it makes sense, right? We're still hardwired the same way as our prehistoric ancestors, right? When we meet someone, our fight or flight response kicks in. Is this person a friend or a foe? And then the second thing is we assess people's social value, right? We assess people's access to resources, which makes a lot of sense, right? You would want to associate yourself with people that have value, right, to give to other people. So the second thing, you want to make sure you take your first impression seriously, and it comes down to basic grooming, making sure your clothes fit, and to take this a step further, reverse engineer what's already working, right? Find someone who has the lifestyle, the relationships, and the things you want in your life, and pay attention to how they're presenting themselves. Okay? And you want to emulate it. Emulate, then you innovate. You add in your own personal touch later on. So that's step number 2. Number 3, again, there's no such thing as money problems. There's only relationship problems, right? Third thing you have to overcome is your fear of approaching new people, right? Whether it's online, you want to pitch your podcast or your website to another show, you want to have a joint venture partner, you're at a networking event, you're trying to connect with the speakers or some prominent guests out there, you need to overcome your social anxiety. And it's as simple as thinking of why things would work as opposed to why things wouldn't work. Because it's so, again, from a dating perspective, a guy sees a beautiful girl, immediately he goes into, she probably has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
She's a total bitch. She's not going to want to talk to me, right? Yeah. Well, actually, from my experience, some of the nicest girls I've ever talked to are also some of the most beautiful ones I've talked to as well, right? So challenger, and again, same thing with high performers, same thing with influencers. Mm-hmm. They're some of the most genuine and authentic people I've ever connected, as long as you approach them from a place of, like, hey, like I value what you do, instead of this like total fanboy, right? Like, oh my God, so cool. So that's number 3. Number 4 is you need to learn how to tell your story. People are going to ask you, the same basic stuff. What do you do? Where are you from? What's your story? How did you get started into this? So whether you're on a first date or you're trying to make new friends, you're at a networking event, you just connected with an influencer, and he's asking you about who you are, what got you into business, what's your business all about. And if you're rambling on and you're not making sense, he's gone.
Yep.
Right? So you have to understand proper storytelling, right? And then lastly, again, this is in my opinion the most important thing. Like you have to develop a lifestyle that's congruent to your core values, right? Or at least start taking steps to be able to get there. I find that so many people want to help me because I'm doing my best, right, every single day to live in alignment with the lifestyle that I have envisioned for myself. So there's a few reasons why this is important, right? If you live authentically, you will cut through all the bullshit, right? You'll attract the right kind of people in your life, whether it's personal, romantic, or professional. And number 2, you just have you just feel better about yourself. Your self-esteem goes up. You have a better self-image because as a person, whether you're a male or a female, that you're living a life that you designed instead of what's handed to you. So those are the 5 things that I would tell this guy for wine. Yeah. And again, you can download the same cheat sheet on my website, socialconfidence.com.
I love it. That is awesome stuff. I appreciate you running that down like that. And I love the last bit. I totally agree with you about the authenticity. And that's such a huge business lesson too, isn't it? Because I'm sure a ton of entrepreneurs out there that are starting these businesses because they heard it would make them the most money, or it seems like the cool thing to do at this time, which is fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it will feel completely different than starting a business because it's something you believe in. And I know that's the case with you. That's why we kind of clicked and vibed right away. I do what I do because I love it. Like, it literally gives me, I'm an introvert by nature, and I love my time alone and in quiet. But when I get to have these conversations or share on my show or share on somebody else's show, it actually feeds me energy. I love it and I enjoy it. And I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, if people can make sure that even if they're not in the exact business that they want to be in, if they approach it from and perform in it from a way that's in alignment with who they are, that's a great starting point. And I think it's really important. So everybody, socialconfidencemastery.com. I'll make sure that's linked up in the show notes at aaronkeithhawkins.com, and make sure you go check Myke out. But before we finish, you got your hot seat questions. This is Unbreakable Success, so it is the virtual mastermind for business and life. So I got to ask you the 4 hot seat questions. Number 1, Myke, I'm not even going to ask you if you're ready because I know you're ready. You're just that kind of dude. So question number 1, what's a recent business struggle, or even if it's not a not so recent business struggle that you've had that kind of stands out in your mind, and how did you get through it, or how are you still working on it?
Okay, so a big thing that I see in the online marketing space is this whole idea of, sales funnels, creating passive income, making money while you sleep, and, making money through your online courses, right? Yeah. What most people don't realize is, number 1, people get caught up with the funnel stuff and all the techie stuff at the end of the day, but, like making business, like building a business online is the same thing as building a business in person, right? Yeah. Like you need to treat people online as if you're communicating with them in person. And so for me, a struggle that I had before was I started seeing emails as just a bunch of numbers. I kept forgetting that people are opting in to my email list and there's a person behind that email with dreams and ambitions and pains and desires that they're hoping that when they found my website through my paid traffic that, oh, I hope this is the one. I hope this is the thing that I've been looking for. So for me, like remembering that, like it's P2P, it's not B2B or B2C.
Yeah.
So that's a big lesson that I had to learn. And the other thing is really falling in love with tracking my key performance indicators, right? If I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs go through the feast or famine cycle, and that can be solved very easily by just having a basic funnel that walks people through from start to finish and tracking your numbers. Make sure that you keep your dollars accountable. Where do your leads come from? How much does it cost you to get a lead? How long does it take them to convert, right? Per dollar that you put in through your sales funnel, how much comes out, right?
Yep.
You have to know these numbers. Don't get caught up with your Facebook fans, your Instagram followers, your Twitter followers, cheap cost per lead. Those things don't matter. The thing is it converting and are you profitable? Because at the end of the day, you can take that to the bank, right? You can't take your vanity metrics to the bank.
Absolutely not. That's brilliant advice. Brilliant advice. And I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh, and one more thing. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do things in person. Don't be afraid to start in person. I swear to God, I learned so much about my avatar because I saw them. I talked to them. I coached them in person. I got to hear their story. I felt their presence. I saw their reaction when they lit up and when they were down. Like, I got to see everything. So as a matter of fact, from my perspective, the reason why I became successful online is because I spent a lot of time offline.
Beautiful. That's brilliant.
So that's one more thing.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice, especially for today's day and age where, like you said, everything is being pushed, get your funnel right. But these are people that are trusting in you to give them like some really good value, and the person-to-person connection is so important. And I appreciate you reminding all of us of that. So let's jump from something that's really, really working great for you these days, and it could be a thing in your personal life or in your business. What's really working for you? Something that it really makes you want to say, you know what, I got to tell somebody about this because it's really amazing.
There's two things. Number one, I'm a very practical person. I grew up in a very traditional Asian family. Went to school for engineering, right? Like, I'm all about if I can see it, if I can touch it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
What's made a huge difference in my life, Aaron, is exploring the more spiritual side of personal development, right? Getting clear about my goals, visualizing, focusing on what's working in my life, getting into that good feeling. So I remember watching a YouTube video about this. So many people go through. So imagine you're making a toast, right? So many people, they open the fridge, they take out the loaf of bread, they start to put butter, and then they put it inside the toaster, but they never plugged in the toaster. So they're going through all this work and effort, but they're not plugged into their source, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's all about tapping into that good feeling, right? So it's all about visualizing your goals, knowing what it's like to have your dream goals in fruition already, knowing how that feels like, and then operating from that place. That's been, in my opinion, the most beneficial non-business technique that didn't just help me in my business, but also in other areas of my life. And then the second thing, I heard this from a different podcast by Taki Moore. He calls it the 5 1s, right? So focusing on one traffic source, one conversion mechanism, one audience, one product for 1 year, right? And that prunes, everything, right? You're putting all your effort, your energy into just the 5 1s, right? And you stick to that for 1 year, and then that's how you build a 6-figure business. Beautiful.
I love it. Sage advice from Myke, everybody. I got to thank you on behalf of the entire audience for that one. Third question, what is next for you on this horizon, man? I know you're growing. I know you had, we were talking earlier, you told me this past year has been your best yet in business. So I know you're still just getting started. And I'm sure you probably got a laundry list of things on your to-do list over the next 5-10 years. But what's the biggest thing for you on your horizon that kind of gets you lit up when you think about it?
I want to start some sort of school for men that teach social confidence, right? I feel like, people are investing, 30, 40, 50, 100K, right, in their and their degrees and MBAs and doctorates and whatnot, but there's very few education on interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
Like self-development, understanding the relationship you have with yourself, first impressions, even dressing. I've had so many guys, Aaron, who like were a little bit overweight, and an hour at the mall, we got them a good haircut, some good fitting clothes, and they started getting treated differently, and then teaching them how to tell better stories, how to find the right venues where the right type of people show up. I want to start some sort of school. I want to have coaches working for me, and they go through the curriculum. They teach the Social Confidence Blueprint, which is my program, and just like reach more shy guys and make a difference. And this year I went to a few weddings from guys that I worked with a few years ago. And Aaron,
dude, that's amazing.
That's got to be like one of the most rewarding experiences for me. Wow. So I just want to have more of that, right? So
that's amazing. My hats off to you, because that's not a vanity stat. That's like you literally, you working with somebody literally changed their life for the rest of their life. So I got goosebumps when you said that you went to their wedding. You're able to see them, on their big day, man. That's amazing. And I love your idea about the school, because I'll be honest, especially from a male perspective, the whole idea of personal development and kind of realizing that you don't have all the answers, and men do bumble through life sometime, even though most of the time most guys like to wear that mask like everything's fine and they got it all together and they don't want to talk to anybody about anything. But the truth is, I mean, we're all people, and yes, we have some of our differences between male and female. Our tendencies are different, but at the end of the day, I love what you're doing, because it speaks to authenticity and the vulnerability that men need to be able to just allow to happen more in this day and age, and kind of take the whole mask off and realize, I don't feel completely comfortable in my own skin, and I need help with it. And for you to create a safe place that in the way that you already have been, and for you to want to take it a step further, that's amazing. My hat's off to you.
Thank you, man. And you know what, Aaron, at the end of the day, like, it's not even about, it's not even about the money. It's not about the women. It's none of that. It's about you as a person. It's about living your life the way that you want to design it, right? That's what it's all about, man. So it's just about being happy. That's what it all comes down to. The 6-figure income, the happy relationships, the cool friends, like, that's all fine and good. We all just want to be happy, right?
I'm totally in alignment with you there, man. I appreciate that. So, most important question of all, how can people get a hold of you to support you and to get support from you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, just, I got a podcast, I got books, go to socialconfidencemastery.com. Again, you can download that cheat sheet, the one that I talked about earlier, and everything should be there. My Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter, just go there and everything should be there. So
cool. Everybody, make sure you get linked up with Myke. And you know what, as you're listening to this podcast right now, better stay subscribed to this one. This is Unbreakable Success. But Myke, tell us the name of your podcast so they can type it up now in the search bar.
Same thing, Social Confidence Mastery.
Cool. Make sure you search for it right now. Don't wait. Search for it, Social Confidence Mastery. Make sure you subscribe to his show and give him a good review. Trust me, you'll like what you see there. Especially when you see me, make sure you wave and give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, actually, I'm excited to publish your episode, man. You dropped some really amazing information about how to master your emotions. So again, thanks for gracing my podcast as well.
Hey, loved it. I had a great time, and definitely had a great time with you here today. Everybody, make sure you check out Myke's links at aaronkeithhawkins.com. Just go to the search bar, type in Myke, M-Y-K-E.
That's right.
You're finding the wrong Myke. M-Y-K-E. Type in Myke in the search bar, and you'll find a link to our episode together, and you can link to his free cheat sheet. Because confidence it's so important. It's something that it's an ongoing thing, isn't it?
Totally. It never stops.
Yeah.
It never stops.
I grew up as the shy little overweight kid as well, and
awesome.
While I feel like a confident man today, life is contextual, isn't it? Like there are things where we feel completely confident, and in a different context we feel a little out of our element. So to have a resource and somebody like you that's doing this for the right reasons and really trying to make a difference in people's life, not trying to, who is making a difference in people's lives. We appreciate you for being here, Myke, and we'll definitely be in touch soon. Thanks again, my man.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Hey, talk to you soon. Hey, it's Aaron, and thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Unbreakable Success. If you honestly got something valuable from this episode or any of the other episodes of Unbreakable Success, I have two more opportunities that I'd love to offer for you. Number one is the opportunity to obviously subscribe and make sure you get each of these episodes as they're released. And number two, I'd love to offer you the opportunity to stop by AaronKeithHawkins.com. There is always something there free for you to take and help you succeed in your business or life. Sometimes it's workshops, free downloads, checklists, great interviews on Unbreakable Success podcast, or the videos from here on iTunes. I'd love for you to get more of what you've already enjoyed. So please take me up on that, AaronKeithHawkins.com. Until then, I'll talk to you next time, and I appreciate you for being here. Take care.